Hello and welcome to Historically Drinking. And this is truly a historic time. I am filming this the afternoon of Friday, November 6th, 2020. It is 3 days past our election, and we still do not have a president-elect for next year yet. So, let's take care of our collective election hangover with shots. We'll do some shots and we'll talk about some history of shots. Now, if you like content like this, hit the subscribe button below and the little notification bell that appears after it. Before we get into the history of shots, let's do one. What we're making today is a cinnamon whiskey, or fireball, if you will. This is not the only way to make cinnamon whiskey, but it is, to my mind, the easiest. And yeah, all right, let's get started. So first off, we're going to use some bitters. What I'm using are Fee's old-fashioned bitters. These make this recipe because they have a strong, condensed cinnamon character to them. So we're going to use a ton of these bitters. We're actually going to use 10 drops, or 10 dashes. There we go. Now we're going to sweeten this up a little bit by using some simple syrup. Just 1/4 ounce of this will do. And now we need our whiskey. What we want to use for this is a lower proof bourbon. I'm using Evan Williams Black Label. You don't want to use something higher proof because we're trying to make a shot that's really easy to take down. In most instances, I am a fan of mixing with higher proof alcohol, but this is an exception. Right, now we're going to put some ice in our mixing glass and stir it up. We're not going to stir a ton. We don't need to dilute this a lot. We're going to stir it a little just to get all the ingredients to mix together. This is going to end up being about 1.5 ounce sized shot once the water is added into it from the ice melting while we stir. All right, that should do it. I do not have a traditional shot glass in my home, so I'm using one of these Glencairn glasses. Okay, let's have a little sip before I shoot it to see how it turned out. Oh, that's good. Bottoms up. Whew. I think we all need that right now. So, shots. You may have heard some stories about where the term shot came from. One popular one is that it originated in 1850s Indiana, when a barrel of whiskey was shot by temperance enforcers, leading people who lived in the neighborhood to refer to any pour of whiskey that they wanted to get thereafter as a shot. Another even more popular story that you might have heard is that cowboys in the Old West who were running low on money would use a single round of ammunition to pay for their shot. Both of these are myths. In the case of the second one, a single round of ammunition does not now or then have the same value of a single shot of whiskey. So that wouldn't be a fair trade. But also, the earliest known reference to people drinking shots is way before this. It's actually from the autobiography of a British minister from the late 1600s. Then we see another reference in 1721 in a London dictionary that defines the word shot as referring to a flagon that a taverner would give to his guest if they drank more than a shilling. So that leads us into shots as containers. Now, without it being called a shot glass, in the 1800s in the US, there were lots of written references to tiny glasses used to holding whiskey. But the first actual mention of a shot glass is found in an article from the 1940s that was written in the New York Times. Now, those shot glasses at that point, up until that point, shots and shot glasses were used primarily to refer to a single spirit in the glass. So a shot of whiskey, for example, which isn't exactly how we're using the term, how we think of shots now. Yes, we do think of them as a single spirit, but we also think of them as all those crazy wild shots, like kamikazes and red-headed things. Those weren't around yet. When those really started to come into play were in the 1970s. And this actually represented an era of cocktail creation. That's what these shots that people were developing were. The tiki era had been the last big era of cocktail creation, and that was really waning. And the next one that we would see started in the 90s after the shot era started to wane a little bit with the rejuvenation of the classic cocktail scene. So the whole era of shots, when they were super popular and people were creating all of these crazy drinks with these crazy names, this was actually a really vital period for drink creation. Whether they were that good, I'd say in general they were pretty unbalanced. They weren't something that you wanted to sip on, but all they needed to do was taste good for a moment. So they were typically very sugary and used ingredients that imbued them with flavors other than the flavor of alcohol, like in the instance of our cinnamon whiskey. So that's our history of shots. I hope that by the time you're watching this, our political situation is figured out. And I hope that you still enjoy your shot of cinnamon whiskey. Once again, if you liked this and would like more historically drinking content, please hit the subscribe button below and hit the notification bell after it. And also, I would love to hear your comments. What are your favorite shots? I would really like to know. All right. Cheers. Good luck, USA.